Most women think men fall in love with what they see, but the truth is far more nuanced. Men fall in love with what they feel when they're around you. It's when he begins to want to be around you, not out of obligation, but out of desire. So no, you don't need to impress him with clever lines or dazzle him with charm. God. You need to speak in a way that makes him feel alive, emotionally safe, and connected. In the next section, I'll give you a phrase that does exactly that and show you why it works so powerfully, even if you are just getting to know him. When it comes to creating an instant connection with a man, most women think they need to be witty, charming, or say something impressive. But the truth is, real connection happens in the simplest moments and with the simplest words. The first phrase I want to give you may sound subtle, but when delivered with the right energy, it creates a moment of emotional intimacy that most men rarely experience. The phrase is, "That actually makes a lot of sense." Now you might be thinking, really? That's it? But stay with me, because this phrase, when used genuinely, is one of the fastest ways to make a man feel understood. And understanding is one of the deepest emotional needs we all have. For men especially, being heard without being judged is incredibly rare. We're often expected to be logical, decisive, or emotionally distant. So when a woman responds in a way that validates his thought process, not agrees blindly, but simply reflects understanding, it creates a subtle yet powerful bridge between you. That actually makes a lot of sense, tells him that you re-listening not just to the surface words, but to the meaning behind them. It says you respect how he thinks, even if you don't fully agree. And respect to a man is one of the deepest forms of affection he can feel. This phrase becomes even more powerful in moments when he's sharing something vulnerably, frustration at work, fear about his future, or even just how he sees the world. Because suddenly, you're not just another person he's talking to. You're someone who gets him. And when a man feels gotten, when he feels emotionally mirrored, without having to defend himself, something shifts. He stops performing. He opens up. He leans in. He starts sharing more because he associates you with that feeling of emotional safety. That's the beginning of real intimacy. So try this the next time he says something that offers a window into how he thinks. Pause. Really listen. Let your face soften. And say it with warmth. That actually makes a lot of sense. Don't say it just to flatter him. Say it when it's true. Say it when you mean it. Because when you do, you'll feel the energy shift. You'll feel him relax. You'll see the light in his eyes change. And that change, that's not just attraction. That's emotional imprinting. That's the moment his nervous system says, "I like how I feel around her. I want more of this." In the next section, I'll show you another phrase, one that taps into a man's hidden desire to be seen as a protector, a provider, and someone who makes a real impact in your world. And once you use this phrase, he won't just feel attracted, he'll feel emotionally invested. And more often than not, that feeling is shaped by just a few carefully chosen words. Have you ever said something to a man, something completely normal, and suddenly his energy changed? Maybe he seemed distracted, less responsive, or just distant. And it leaves you wondering, what did I say wrong? But the real question isn't always what you said wrong. It's often, what didn't you say right? What most women don't realize is that men respond to emotional undercurrents, not just words. What creates deep, lasting attraction is when a man feels emotionally safe and seen in your presence. And that starts with words, the right ones. See, most men are emotionally starved. They're taught to be strong, silent, and unaffected. So when you use language that reflects empathy, insight, or soft admiration, it lights something up in him that he probably doesn't even know he's craving. It's rare, and that rarity, it's magnetic. Even the smallest phrase, like, "I love the way your mind works," can go further than any flirtatious line. Why? Because it acknowledges who he is, not just what he does. You're not just talking to him, you're speaking into him. That's where attraction deepens. It's when connection becomes personal. When a woman speaks with emotional clarity, grounded warmth, and just a hint of curiosity, something unlocks. He feels safe, respected, valued, and he starts associating you with those feelings. But truly acknowledges him. That's what makes all the difference. Think about this. He's opening up about something that matters to him. Now let's shift to the next phrase, one that quietly makes a man obsessed with figuring you out. It's short, casual, but it plants a seed in his mind that will grow long after the conversation ends. Most people don't really get that about me. Sounds simple. But what you've just done is introduce mystery with vulnerability. Let's say you resharing something about yourself. How much you love silence in the morning, how you reread old books instead of starting new ones, or how fiercely loyal you are when someone earns your trust. Right after, you add softly, most people don't really get that about me. What happens next is subtle but powerful. His mind locks in. Why don't people get that? What does she mean? What else have people missed about her? Suddenly, you are no longer just someone interesting. You're someone he wants to understand. You've created an emotional cliffhanger. Men are hardwired to close the loop. That open loop, it draws him in, makes him pay attention. Because this isn't just about attraction anymore. This is about discovery. You've invited him to lean closer, not because you're being elusive, but because you've shown that there are parts of you that not everyone gets to see. And if he's lucky, he might. It's not about making him chase you. It's about inviting him into depth, without force, without agenda. This phrase carries a soft strength. It tells him you're layered, that there's more to you, and that if he wants to matter to you, he has to see you. And once he starts seeing those parts, he's hooked. It's not because he's trying to win, but because he feels like he's discovering something precious, something hidden, something he wants to protect. That's the kind of connection that doesn't just attract, it stays. So the next time you're sharing something about yourself, pause and gently say, most people don't really get that about me. Watch how he leans in. Watch how the energy shifts. Watch how, in that silence, you say more than words ever could. You're not here to impress, you're here to connect. And these phrases, they're not tricks, they're bridges. Use them. Watch him cross. It could be a belief he holds, an experience that left a mark, or simply something he's passionate about that most people brush off. Instead of jumping in with advice or trying to relate it back to yourself, you stop, you listen, you see him. Then, in a soft and sincere voice, you say, that actually makes a lot of sense. You didn't flatter him. You didn't fake agreement. What you did was something so rare, it almost feels intimate, who validated his inner world. And in doing that, something shifts in him. He relaxes. He feels safe. Not in the, I'm safe with her because she's nice way, but in the soul-level kind of way that says, I don't have to wear armor with her. Here's what most people miss. Men aren't starved for admiration. They're starved for recognition. Real, grounded, emotional recognition. When you use that one phrase, what you're really telling him is your thoughts aren't crazy, your emotions aren't irrational, your experience is valid that moment. It creates a microbond. A pause in time where he no longer has to prove anything. He can just be. And for men who spend most of their lives performing for their bosses, their peers, even for the world, that kind of moment is unforgettable. It doesn't just make him open up more. It makes him feel emotionally loyal to you, because you're no longer someone he's trying to impress. You're someone who already gets him, and that's rare. Now let's take it deeper. Say he's talking about how he handled a conflict with someone, and it's clear he's unsure if he did the right thing. Instead of giving your take or pointing out what he could have done differently, you meet him with, that actually makes a lot of sense. You see what happens there? You just told him he makes sense. Not that he's flawless, but that he's not alone in his logic or his feeling. You met him where he is, and now he's going to want to stay in that space with you. Talk more, reveal more, let you further in. This is the power of phrases that build emotional safety. They're not dramatic, they don't sound seductive, but they unlock him from the inside out. And the best part, you didn't manipulate. You didn't play games. You created trust with truth. You're not just revealing a detail about yourself, you're extending a quiet invitation. A whisper of vulnerability wrapped in subtle confidence. When you say, most people don't really get that about me, you're not boasting, not waiting for someone to fix them. They're waiting for someone to simply sit with them in it. Without judgment. Without rushing them to be okay. Without turning the moment back on themselves. When you say, I can imagine that must have felt like a lot, as if UVA opened a window he didn't even know was closed. And through that window comes something few men feel in this world. Acceptance. Not the kind that's conditional or surface level, but the kind that says, you don't have to explain yourself here. You're already understood. That changes everything. And the beauty of this phrase is it doesn't require a dramatic story. He might mention he's been tired, that something with his boss got under his skin, or that he's been feeling overwhelmed. Instead of brushing past it or saying something like, "Yeah, work sucks, try this," I can imagine that must have felt like a lot. Let it be said without weight, but with warmth. He'll feel it. He may not say anything immediately, but something in him will soften, because now he's not alone in his experience. You're there. You're with him, and he knows it. That's what emotional connection looks like. You become a quiet place in a world that demands him to be loud. You become ease in a world that expects him to be hard. You become safe. And when a man feels emotionally safe with a woman, he doesn't just like her, he attaches to her. He trusts her with more of himself. He wants her close, not just because of how she looks or what she says, because of how she makes him feel about himself. Seen, respected, held. So remember this phrase. It's not one you throw around to sound wise. It's one you use when it matters. When you want to be the woman he remembers as the one who didn't try to fix him, but simply saw him. Up next, we talk about the phrase that gently dissolves his emotional defenses and invites him to open his heart, even if he's not used to doing that. This is where we stop just building attraction and start creating intimacy. You're not trying to be mysterious. You're letting someone know there are parts of you few people see. And if he's paying attention, he now has a choice. That phrase, said with soft honesty, makes him feel like he's just been handed a map to a place most people never find. It lingers in his mind. It pulls his attention inward. It asks nothing while offering everything. And that, more than any overt flirtation, is what makes a woman unforgettable. So next time you're sharing a personal truth, no matter how light or deep, say it gently, without expectation. Let that phrase land. Let the silence stretch just long enough to let curiosity bloom. Most people don't really get that about me. If he's emotionally attuned, his whole body will lean in. And just like that, the energy shifts. Now let's go even deeper. Because one of the most overlooked but powerful forces in attraction is emotional understanding. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. But when a man feels genuinely understood, not just heard, but felt, changes the entire dynamic between you. He stops seeing you as someone in his life. He starts seeing you as someone who gets his life. There's a phrase that does this like nothing else. I can imagine that must have felt like a lot. It's simple, soft, and disarming. But don't mistake its simplicity for weakness. This phrase carries incredible emotional weight because it doesn't just acknowledge what he said. It tells him, without a doubt, that you felt it with him. Picture this. He's sharing something real. Maybe a moment of frustration with his family, a mistake at work, a pressure he's been carrying quietly. The default response might be to offer advice, to solve it, to relate with your own story. But that's not what opens him. That's not what makes him feel safe. Instead, you breathe. You pause. You look him in the eye and say, "I can imagine that must have felt like a lot." You're not trying to be poetic. You're not trying to win him over. You're just present. And that presence is everything. Because here, so what most people don't understand about men, especially men who are emotionally guarded or rarely talk about their inner world. There's a moment in every growing connection that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or fireworks. It arrives in silence, in hesitation, in a pause between words. He starts inviting you into parts of his story he's never told anyone. Not because you asked, but because finally he feels free to. It may start small. A quiet admission, a glance that lingers a bit longer. A late-night message saying, "I've never told anyone this," but that's not him being weak. That's him being brave. That's him choosing intimacy over performance. Choosing presence over pride. And here's the secret no one tells you. That's when he bonds. Not when you impress him. Not when you flirt flawlessly. But when he realizes he can bring his full self to you and you'll stay. Let's be clear, this isn't about turning into his therapist. You're not here to heal him or carry his wounds. You're here to be a partner in presence. That means you don't need to fix anything. You don't need to have all the right words. Sometimes just sitting beside him, breathing together, saying, "I'm here," is more healing than any solution could ever be. This phrase also works when the moment isn't heavy. It's just a little quiet. You ask him how he's doing and he says fine, but you feel something else in his tone. That's when you offer the space gently. You don't have to talk about it now. But if you ever want to, I'm here. And then you go back to sipping your coffee. no pressure, just presence. That's what makes it powerful. Because here's what happens in his mind. You just became different. You just became safe. You just became unforgettable. Most men aren't used to that. They're used to being admired for what they do, not held for who they are. They're used to attention, not understanding. So when you give them something deeper, emotional, permission, they don't just feel seen, they feel chosen. And here's the part that matters most. When a man opens up and feels accepted, he starts to associate you with that feeling. The feeling of peace, of being allowed, of being known. And that feeling becomes magnetic. He won't chase that with just anyone. He'll protect it. He'll invest in it. He'll come closer again and again because you've given him something rare, a place where his guard can come down without cost. So, if you're ever wondering how to invite real closeness, remember this. It's not about saying more. It's about saying less, but meaning more. It's about choosing words that say, you're free here, free to show up as you are, free to not have it all together, free to unfold, piece by piece, when it feels right. Use the phrase, let it land. Say it slowly like this. You don't have to share if you're not ready. But if you ever do, I'm here. Then leave space. Let it breathe. Because what happens in that silence isn't empty. It's full of possibility. And in that stillness, the door to emotional intimacy quietly opens. And that, more than anything, is what turns a moment into meaning, and meaning into magnetism. It happens when his voice softens ever so slightly, when he shifts in his seat, when he starts a sentence but doesn't finish it. That's the moment where vulnerability is on the verge of stepping out into the open. And whether it steps forward or retreats, that depends, often quietly, on how you receive it. You see, for most men, opening up emotionally isn't second nature. It's not a muscle that was strengthened over time. It's not something they were encouraged to do or even permitted to explore. From an early age, many boys are taught that being emotional is messy, that softness is weakness, that to be respected, they must be composed, in control, impenetrable. And so, they learn to armor up. They learn to smile when they want to cry, to shrug when they want to scream, to change the subject when something real starts to surface. But that doesn't mean they don't want to be seen. Underneath that practiced ease is a very human yearning to be understood, not just admired, to be safe, not just desired, to be accepted in their whole complexity, not just for what they provide. And this is where your power begins, not in changing him, but in creating a space where he no longer feels like he has to hide. There's a phrase that opens that door gently, a phrase that doesn't push, doesn't pry, doesn't make demands or ask for more than he's ready to give. But it lets him know quietly and clearly that when he's ready, you'll be there not with judgment, but with presence. The phrase is, you don't have to share if you're not ready, but if you ever do, I'm here. Let that sink in. It sounds simple, maybe even obvious. But when it's delivered with authenticity, in the right moment, it becomes one of the most emotionally magnetic things you can say to a man. Why? Because it holds both softness and strength. It doesn't make him feel exposed. It makes him feel held. Imagine this. You're sitting together. The conversation shifts. He brings up something from his past, something unresolved. Maybe he brushes it off, downplays it, laughs as if it doesn't matter. Maybe he says, it's not really worth getting into. That's the moment right there. That's not a dismissal. That's a test. A quiet one. He's not testing your reaction intentionally. He may not even be aware of it himself. But deep down, he's watching. Will you try to dig? Will you rush in with advice? Will you make it about you? Or will you hold steady and let him feel the safety of your stillness?
When you respond with, you don't have to share if you're not ready, but if you ever do, I'm here, what you're really saying is this: I respect your timing. I see you as more than what you show. And if you ever feel safe enough to let me in, I won't run from it.
I won't shrink. I won't misuse what you give. That's rare. And rarity builds trust. Trust builds connection. Connection real. Emotional connection ease, what turns interest into investment. Most women are taught to listen, but few are taught how to hold. Holding space isn't passive. It's powerful. It means you create an environment where another person can feel safe in their complexity, where they can unfold without fear of being judged, fixed, or misunderstood. And for a man, especially one who has learned to armor up just to survive that kind of environment, is transformative. Your S. What S beautiful. When a man senses that you re the kind of woman who can hold space without pressure, he starts letting down walls he didn't even know he built. There's something quietly powerful about the words, "I feel so safe with you." They don't shout. They don't perform. They don't try to impress. Safety is a universal human need. But emotional safety, that's rare. And for a man, it's particularly hard to come by. It's not because he doesn't feel, but because he's been conditioned to suppress what he feels. When you speak to him in a way that tells him, "You're safe with me, and I feel safe with you," you're creating a feedback loop of trust, of openness, of shared emotional grounding. You're not saying you need him. You're not saying you couldn't survive without him. What you're saying is far more powerful. I choose to rest in your presence. I feel safe enough to be my full self when I'm with you. You make the world feel a little softer, a little less sharp. That's not neediness. That's emotional intimacy. And it's that kind of intimacy that makes a man feel bonded to you, not just attracted. Because while physical chemistry may spark attraction, it's emotional safety that sustains it. That turns a fun connection into a lasting one. Now, you might be wondering, will this make me seem too vulnerable to open? The answer is no, not when it's rooted in emotional strength. When you know who you are, when you own your independence, when you walk through the world with grounded self-worth. These words don't make you weaker, they make you more powerful. Because you're not saying them to get something. You're saying them because they're true. Truth, especially emotional truth, is magnetic. So let's talk about the delivery. This phrase works best when paired with genuine emotion, eye contact, and stillness. You don't want to say it in passing. You want to mean it. Maybe place a hand on his arm or shoulder. Maybe you lean your head into him. Most importantly, say it like it matters, because it does. And then say nothing else. Let the weight of those 4 words land in the space between you. Let them soak in, because in that silence, he'll hear everything you didn't say. He'll feel everything you meant. He'll feel needed, not in a burdensome way, but in a way that awakens his heart. He'll feel trusted. And trust is the soil where love grows. You'll feel honored, and honoring a man's emotional self is how you unlock the part of him that will fight to stay by your side. So yes, this phrase, "I feel so safe with you," it's simple. But don't mistake simplicity for softness. This is one of the most emotionally powerful phrases you can ever say to a man, because it makes him feel like a man. Not in the outdated performative sense, but in the sacred sense. The kind that makes him feel like he's stepping into the highest version of himself. He's doing it for you. But when said with sincerity, with steady eye contact and warmth behind the words, they land deeper than almost anything else you could say to a man. 'Cause here's what you're really doing in that moment. You're retouching a part of him that is rarely acknowledged, his desire to protect, to be relied on, to matter in a way that goes far beyond surface attraction or ego. You're awakening something deeply embedded in his biology, in his emotional structure, the primal part of him that longs to be the one who makes you feel safe, grounded, and emotionally secure. This instinct isn't about dominance or control. It's not about being macho or alpha. That's surface-level posturing, and most emotionally grounded men don't care about that. What they do care about is whether their presence makes a difference to someone they care about. They want to know that their energy calms you, supports you, shields you from the chaos of the world, and that in your world, their presence isn't just welcome, it's felt. So when you look him in the eyes and say, "I feel so safe with you," you're not just saying thank you. You're saying, "I see the way you show up for me. I feel the way you steady the energy between us. You make me feel like I can exhale around you, like I can be softer, freer, more myself. I trust that." And that kind of trust doesn't just touch a man, it transforms him. Suddenly, he's not just someone you enjoy spending time with. He's someone you lean into. He's someone whose role in your life has meaning, not because you're helpless or dependent, but because you've allowed him to show up for you in a way that feels significant. This phrase is an invitation, not an expectation. You're not asking him to rescue you. You're letting him know that the way he shows up already makes you feel safe. It's not about asking for more, it's about affirming what already exists between you. And that kind of validation is like emotional fuel for a man. It reinforces that his quiet efforts, his steady presence, his gentle protection, it's not invisible. It's appreciated, it's valued. How timing matters here. This isn't a phrase you toss out to manipulate or flatter. It's something you say in a moment when you genuinely feel it. Maybe you're sitting together on the couch after a long day and his energy calms you. Maybe he walks you home and his presence makes the night feel softer, quieter. Or maybe he just showed up when you needed him, not with fireworks, but with quiet consistency. That's when you pause. You meet his gaze. You say it simply, softly. I feel so safe with you. And then let the silence do the rest. Because the silence after those words is often louder than the words themselves. In that silence, he feels your trust. He feels your presence. He feels his purpose come alive in a relationship that doesn't demand him to be perfect, but invites him to be real. This phrase also softens him. It lowers the invisible defenses he didn't even realize were up. You see, most men don't live in spaces where they feel like their presence alone is enough. They're taught to provide, to fix, to perform. So when you acknowledge that his energy, the way he just is, makes you feel safe, he breathes differently around you. His heart opens, his guard drops, and suddenly, connection deepens. Let's talk about why this works psychologically. Once you understand how a phrase creates safety, sparks curiosity, or nurtures emotional connection, it stops feeling like something memorized and starts feeling like something lived. That's where the shift begins. You don't need to rehearse to sound confident. Connect in a more thoughtful, intentional way means you're already operating on a different level, a deeper one most people never even reach. And over time, as these phrases begin to feel like second natures, they stop being something you retrying and become something you start to see the difference. You'll notice how men respond, how they stay longer in conversation, how they soften, how they open, how they remember you. Not for what you wore, it's not for what you looked like, but for how you made them feel. That's your power. You're no longer chasing attention, you're creating resonance. You're not begging to be seen, you're choosing to see first. And that kind of energy, that S, the energy that keeps someone thinking about you long after you left the room. So let's return to what we've uncovered. 5 phrases. Each one simple, but deeply rooted in emotional wisdom. Each one capable of transforming surface-level connection into something rich, magnetic, and real. You've learned how to validate without fixing, how to intrigue without performing, how to empathize without overstepping, how to create space without withdrawing, how to invite protection without pretending to be fragile. These are not scripts, they're keys. When you speak them with the energy of a woman who knows her worth, who owns her softness without apology, who listens with her heart instead of just her ears, those keys unlock something powerful, not just in him, but in you. Because when you begin to communicate like this, you'll notice something subtle but life-changing. You won't just attract differently, you'll relate differently. You'll become the kind of woman who doesn't just hope for connection, she creates it. Now, before we close, I want to leave you with one last phrase. A bonus. One to keep in your back pocket for those moments when you feel the energy shift and want to leave him thinking about you. It's simple, unassuming, but oh so effective. There's something about you I can't quite put my finger on. And I like that. That's it. But what a ripple it creates. Because in that one line, you've said everything he wants to feel. Without saying too much, you've told him he's different. It's intriguing. You've made him wonder what you see. Most importantly, you've done it without flattery, without pressure. Just curiosity wrapped in softness. It lingers in his mind. It invites him to lean in, to figure out what it is you see that he doesn't even fully see in himself. And when you leave a man wondering, in a good way, you leave a mark. So use it wisely. Use it when the moment feels charged with something more. When the conversation dips into that deeper current, when you sense that he's pulled into your orbit and you want to leave just enough mystery to make him stay. Because remember, true attraction doesn't beg. It doesn't chase, it doesn't shout, it speaks quietly, it listens deeply, and it leaves an imprint. You now have the words, you have the awareness, you have the energy. What you do with it, that's where the real magic lives. So go be that woman. The one who doesn't force connection, but creates it through calm confidence, emotional intelligence, and the soft power of presence. Because that woman, she's not just attractive, she's unforgettable. You need to feel the truth of what you're saying, so start there, not with someone else, but with yourself. Practice these phrases alone, quietly, in front of the mirror, softly into your phone as you record yourself. Maybe even saying them out loud while you're journaling or walking. Say them until they no longer sound like someone else's words, but like your own voice speaking from your own center. You not learning a script, you reconnecting with a part of yourself that has always known how to speak with honesty, warmth, and quiet power. When that comfort builds, everything changes. Because when the moment comes, when you're sitting across from someone and he's opening up, even just a little you won't be scrambling for words. You'll simply respond, naturally, with presence, intention, with softness. That's how real connection begins, not with clever lines, but with a woman grounded enough to slow down, listen fully, and say what feels true. Start small. You don't have to use all 5 phrases in one conversation. That's not the goal. The goal is depth, not performance. Maybe today your quiet practice is this. When someone shares something about themselves, don't rush to respond. Just pause, breathe, and then gently, that actually makes a lot of sense. Let it land. See how it softens the air between you. Feel what happens when a man realizes you're not just hearing his words, you're feeling them. Or maybe the moment calls for something playful and slightly vulnerable, like after sharing something quirky or honest about yourself. That's when you let it slip out casually with a half smile. Most people don't really get that about me. Let it hang there. Let the curiosity bloom in the silence. Let him be the one to lean in. This isn't about strategy. It's about emotional rhythm. The more you pay attention, the more you'll feel the right moment. Because real conversation is like music. It has tempo, tone, and space. The silence between words often matters more than the words themselves. That's where trust grows, in the pauses, the presence, the way you look someone in the eye and give them permission to be real in listening. That's your secret weapon. Deep, active listening isn't just polite, it's magnetic. When you truly tune in, when you're not just waiting to talk, but actually absorbing what he's saying, you'll begin to notice things most people miss. The shift in his voice when he mentions his father, the way he fidgets when talking about his work, the flicker of pride in his eyes when he talks about something he's built. These are emotional cues. They're windows. And when you notice them, that's when you reach for the right phrase, not from your head, but from your presence. Maybe he's sharing something difficult. That's when you gently say, "I can imagine that must have felt like a lot." Watch what happens when he doesn't feel the pressure to explain himself, to be strong, to justify. Watch what happens when he feels seen. Or maybe he hesitates, pulls back when something gets too personal. That's your chance to meet him with calm, not pressure. It's just a quiet. You don't have to share if you're not ready, but if you ever do, I'm here. That's not a test. That's not bait. That's safety. Safety, for a man, is the bridge to everything else. Openness, trust, devotion. It's also okay if a phrase doesn't fit the moment. That's not failure. It's awareness. Adapt. Soften. Save it for another time. The magic is never in using every phrase. It's in reading the moment and then matching it with authenticity. Because attraction, true, lasting attraction, isn't built by force. It's built by attunement. When you respond to someone with emotional intelligence, he feels it. He doesn't always have the words for it, but he knows it's rare. And rare is what makes you unforgettable. Be patient with yourself. No one gets this perfect right away. You'll stumble. You'll overthink. You might say something and wonder later if it came out right. That's part of the process. The goal isn't perfection, it's presence. The fact that you're even willing to slow down. Thank you so much for watching. If you found value in this video, please like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Which phrase resonated with you the most? I'd love to hear your experiences or any questions you have. And don't forget to subscribe for more tips on attraction, communication, and building meaningful relationships. Until next time, keep speaking from your heart and watch the connections you create grow deeper every